if you put like a kind of a mediocre landscape up on Instagram, that everybody likes it. You know, it's all a Twitter. If you put up a really, really great portrait, hardly anybody appreciates it or even notices it. And I think that's a real shame. What is the definition of a portrait? I have no idea. If I had to write that down, it would be probably several hundred pages. I think a portrait involves some aspect of humanity, and it says something about that person, place, or activity. And I think that's the definition of a portrait. Now, how you interpret that visually as an artist or a photographer or whatever, or a painter, is really up to you. So the portrait is wide open. I think of all the great portrait artists, they're all over the map. You know, they're all over the place. A portrait can be a pair of hands. A portrait could be a couple of feet. I have one portrait that I did. It's a mother and two children, and they're all wearing their breakup boots. The portrait goes to the knees. One pair is a flowered pair, one pair is a traditional pair, and one pair is a pink pair. And it's obviously one of those spring days where everything's wet. The snow has just melted away and everything's moist and it's kind of spitting rain. And this mom and her two daughters have these boots on. And so to me, that portrait, right, and it's truly a portrait, it doesn't involve a face, but it says a great deal about those people. It says a great deal about this time and this place we call Alaska in the springtime. I think to have that everyday person, not in a dress-up mode, but more in a, this is some lady out watering lawn. What is she wearing? What is her hairstyle? What type of glasses is she wearing? What does the hose look like? What kind of plants is she watering? What's growing here at this time and place? What size are the trees behind her? What does the architecture look like? Those kinds of little details within the photograph make it interesting. They're interesting to me now. I can imagine how much more interesting they'll be 50 to 100 years from now. 6 years ago, I decided I was going to do a portrait every day for a year. I started that project and it was kind of excruciating for about the first 6 months. And not because I didn't like making portraits, it was because I had a hard time remembering to make my portrait for the day. I mean, we can photograph for runners. You want to do that? Let me go see if these guys are willing and able. But the next 6 months were surprisingly easy, where it became kind of a habit. I started making my portraits, and I'd make sometimes 3 or 4 a day. And then at the end of the day, I'd have to choose one to put up on my blog. At the end of the year, though, with a lot of work, my wife said to me, "Wow, imagine you're really happy to be done with that project." And I said, "Oh, are you kidding? Anybody can do a year. Who can do a decade?" So I'm more than halfway through now my decade of making a portrait a day. And where I am mostly is Anchorage, Alaska. Most of my photographs have been photographed here. And then even within that confine, most of my photographs have been shot right here in my neighborhood, South Addition, Anchorage. And then even closer in, most of the photographs are of my neighbors. I can always go to Westchester Lagoon, and I can always find people, whether they're the hardcore runners. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I photographed you?
No.
No, stay right here. Whether it's the people out ice skating, whether it's people floating boats in their kayaks in the summertime or whatever, there's always somebody at Westchester Lagoon. So I know that I can get at least the more outgoing sector of our community at Westchester Lagoon. Good boy. Good boy. Nice. What do you think? You see that?
Oh, that's pretty fantastic.
I wouldn't miss the 4th of July parade, because the 4th of July parade is the best kind of mash of cultural age, social economic backgrounds of people. I mean, you find all people. Anybody who's in town is pretty much at the 4th of July parade. They talk about 100 different languages being spoken in the school systems here in Anchorage, that we are the most diverse community. Well, if you want to see diversity, go to the 4th of July parade. You see the Hmongs next to the Philippines, next to the Thai, next to the Chinese, next to the African Americans, next to Europeans. They're all there. They're all there. One of my favorite photographs from the 4th of July parade is 2 Russian kids who are selling American flags. Right? And they speak real broken English. They're from Russia, and they're selling American flags at the 4th of July parade. And so, to me, that's the classic image. It's like entrepreneurship by first-generation people who come to America, and they see a need and they fill it. And I think that's just fabulous. That's what Anchorage is all about. It's a fabulous mash of cultures and social backgrounds. It's all mixed up and smashed together at the 4th of July parade. And I love that. In a lot of ways, it's probably like New York City is, or certainly was, 100 years ago, when everybody came through Ellis Island, and you had people from all over the world, and they were all kind of mashed into one place. Lewis Hines photographs from that period, some of the great photographers that documented that situation, and it's crazy, it's wild. And I think we have an aspect of that here. Being a photographer in Anchorage, Alaska, not only do I have the great aspects of Anchorage and its cultural diversity, but then I go out into rural Alaska where I have distinct, different groups of native people who have been in Alaska for different times, some 1,000 years, some 5,000 years. And they have different languages, and they have different cultures, and they have completely different ways of doing things. If you want to talk about diversity, Alaska is the best. Right here and now, Anchorage is a great place to be. And I feel very fortunate that my photography has grown up here. My skills and my identity as a photographer has had a chance to stretch and grow during this time. I feel very fortunate. I'm dyslexic. I didn't learn to read until I was 16. And I mean not 2 words in succession until I was 16. My grandfather was an artist. My mother was an artist. And I used to take drawing lessons from my grandfather and painting lessons every Tuesday night at my grandfather's house. And he had a whole group of people there, and I'd be one of the people learning how to paint. And that started at age 11. And so my ability to draw and paint far exceeded my ability to read and write. And so from a very early age, I was on that track, loving it, loving being able to express myself visually. In the village, there are cycles, and these cycles are generally about 2 weeks, where every 2 weeks, what you hunt for or gather changes dramatically. In the spring, it might be geese and ducks. And then in late spring, it might be blackbirds. And then it might be subsistence fishing. After that, it might be gathering of berries. And then after that, when the ice forms, it might be going out and doing ice fishing for pike. You really could be out there year-round and not get everything. You know, you almost have to be there 2 or 3 years year-round to get all the different subtle things that go on in the village. My name is Clark James Mishler. I'm a photographer, and I've often referred to myself as a visual anthropologist. Some of my favorite work is doing documentary work, particularly in rural Alaska. Peter and Vera Speen were the main characters in this plot. Well, When I first met them, they had a one-room house with a single light bulb in the middle of the ceiling and a linoleum floor that was fairly well worn out. And I slept under the kitchen table. I saw all these things change as time went on. Went out on many, many trips with Peter and Vera and Vera's mother and Peter's mother, all the aunts and the uncles and the cousins. All the different explorations around the area of Kwethluk. All these activities, it just ended up being a wealth of experience and a better understanding of how subsistence people in Alaska live. And of course, you know, while I was there to make photographs, and those photographs kind of speak for themselves. On the Kwethluk River, from the village of Kwethluk, no more than a 5-10 minute ride by boat. They have a little cabin and a little smokehouse and some outdoor hanging poles that they hook up in the summertime to hang the fish. And then they'll string a tarp over top of the fish to keep the rain from spoiling the fish so that it has plenty of time to dry without getting wet. The house has no insulation. The mosquitoes are deadly, you know. But it's great fun, and it's great to see the family. The kids are playing along the riverbank and playing up in the weeds and occasionally helping with the process of the fish. But mostly it's Vera and her mother who process all the fish. They work 16, 18-hour days, and on top of that, they're cooking for the rest of the family. Peter and his son are out catching the fish and doing their subsistence fishing, and then bringing them back, and then the kids go down to the boat and they help carry the fish up to the camp. It's just great. The whole process is just built around fun, and then Vera is teaching the cousins how to cut the fish and how to hang the fish, and they must have 5 or 6 different ways of just hanging fish. Sometimes they'll split the fish down the middle, they'll open it up, they'll use willow sticks to kind of splay the fish out to make sure that it doesn't collapse back on itself. And then they'll hang those on lines. Other times, they'll take the fish laterally and they'll cut it, leaving only the tail connected. And then they'll take those 2 pieces of fish that are connected by the tail and they'll hang those over a log, right? And then they'll do lateral diagonal cuts in that fish to further open up the flesh of the fish to give it more surface area that it could dry. And usually when you do it that way, the fish doesn't dry all that well. It remains very moist. And you might eat that fish maybe a month later because it's not completely dried. It's just sort of dried on the surface. But the interior of the flesh is still very much like the fish that you caught. And then, of course, you've got the strips, which are these tiny little, maybe a 1/4 of an inch or less sometimes, little strips. One side has got the salmon skin, and then you've got maybe an 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 of an inch of flesh of the actual salmon. And those are hung in a smokehouse, and they're dried for maybe 3 or 4 days with a continuous smoke drying effect. So these are going to be extremely dry and extremely dense in the character of the flesh, so that they'll last for 6 months, even longer, and give you nourishment down the road. So all these different processes of the fish are things that I observed, things that I photographed, things that I had no idea that people were doing these sort of things. And these are techniques that have been taught to the kids and then taught to the grandkids and then taught down the road so that eventually everybody in the village knows how to process fish. And it's been going on for thousands of years. And it works. At the end of the winter, when supplies are dwindling, you want some fish product to be left where you can eat that until the next fish come. I remember one time we were out on a moose hunt. We brought enough food for like 5 days, but we were out for 10 days. And so we basically ran out of all of our food. All we had left were these strips of salmon for 3 of us. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go, oh, I'm hungry. I think I'll have a salmon strip. So I'd have like 1 salmon strip, and geez, it was like not a lot of food, but you felt completely full, and you felt you had just taken care of your hunger. And then about 11 o'clock, you go, oh, I'm kind of hungry again. I think I'll have a salmon strip. We did this for 5 days, And the amazing part is I never once had any hunger pangs. I never got sick of it. It was like the perfect food. So if you ever have to say, okay, what's the one food I would take with me? It would be salmon strips. It was just the perfect food. Sure, I'm out there to make photographs, but where does one learn those kinds of things about oneself and about traditional food? These are strips of substance that people have been eating for thousands of years. And the process to catch the fish, to process the fish, to last for 6 months so that you could eat them in the late spring and be able to subsist on those strips. Learning that from these Yupik natives was pretty darn interesting and pretty fun. Portrait of the day. It's such a weird thing. Oftentimes, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been working all day. I don't have my portrait of the day, and I hop in the car, and I go around my neighborhood in kind of concentric circles, going further and further out, trying to find anybody to photograph.
Hi.
Hi, would you guys mind participating in a photo shoot?
Can we put the beers down first?
Maybe.
It's entirely up to you.
You're
Not
Mishler?
technically.
Mishler, yes, Clark Mishler.
Part.
How are you?
What's your name?
I'm Jake.
Jake, nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. Jason.
Jason?
Kim.
Kim, Clark.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I do a portrait a day project,
Oh, cool.
and I'm in my 6th year of doing a portrait every single day for 6 years without missing one. And so, if I were to photograph you, there's a possibility that you could be on my blog.
Okay. Oh, where do I sign?
Oh, good.
Oh,
Oh, man.
Woo!
All
Are you
right.
guys ready for spring?
Yeah, this is great. This is
Sun's
great.
out, guns out.
Okay, so I kind of like this street here, and I love this light. If you don't mind, I'm going to get you right here in the middle of the street, and maybe we can dodge the cars. I just want you to find a place that feels comfortable. I want a little bit of space between you.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and
then we do
and-
like
and-
Charlie's Angels.
And we'll
Just be normal?
yeah, just be
Pretend like you're
maybe that
running.
is normal. I'm not sure, but I don't want you in a straight line.
Gotcha.
Okay, so just try to.
Okay.
I'm going to leave this up to you guys to kind of figure that out. All right, let's see what we got. Just a little closer together. That's good. That's good. All right, and looking right here. Looking right here. Now remember, just be yourselves. Let that head drop just a bit. There you go. Good.
Glad I got my hair cut this afternoon.
Yeah, me too.
It was wild. It was way out of control.
Let's do some of those hands.
Charlie's Angels.
All right, here we go. Now, of course, I got my cameraman on the way. Let that head drop. There you go. Good. Look right here. Can you put those up on top of your head?
Yeah, sure can.
Can't see your eyes. Good. That's good. That sun feels good. You give me your face this way, Kim, just a little bit, but your eyes on me.
Gotcha.
All right, here we go. Good.
How's it going?
Put your hand on your hip. There you go. Good.
It's natural.
All right.
Being normal.
Okay, we got somebody coming. This is looking good. Get the mountains in the background.
Selfie.
Turn toward me a little more. Looking right here. There you go. Good. Here we go. Nice. Center guy, come this way just a tiny bit. It's too much. Go back, go back, go back. Right there. Here we go. What do you think?
That's not mud, kids.
What do you think, kids?
Nice. That's fun.
Isn't
They're
that
so
fun?
beautiful.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And I like
Man,
the.
I wish I
The
would have worn
reflection.
my under.
Yeah, the reflection.
I could have had short shorts on too.
There you go. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Pretty fun. Okay, looking right here.
You don't often find them in.
Yeah, look right here. Look right here. There you go. Nice. Cool.
Is there a way you can Photoshop that healing cold sore? The winter was rough.
That's cute.
Pretty fun. I'll send that to you.
Awesome.
All right. Yes. Well, thanks, guys.
So, which one of these two did you like more? Which one did you end up choosing?
Well, I chose this one, but I like that one better, you know. But based on your opinion, I went with that one.
Yeah.
What part of photography is the photo itself, the shooting of the photo, the capturing of the photo, and what part of it is post-production? And I would say it's probably 50-50. Getting a decent image in the camera is still important, right? But making that picture into something special is in the post-production. That takes the software and mastering of the software in order to take a good image and make it great. And I think that a lot of young photographers miss that part. It has to be both. You have to make a great image and you have to be able to post-produce it. Oh man, look at that. That is just too funny. What do you think? Do we got it?
Absolutely.
Those signs, I still want to buy one. He says, no, I'm not going to sell it to you. Get the hell out of here, right? Come back a year later, and I go, I still want one of those signs. And he goes, the answer's still no. Came back the 5th year, and I said, well, I'm here again. I still want one of those signs. He says, God damn it.
That's it.
Go back there and take it and shut up.
Nice.
Sometimes you got it the first time, and sometimes, you know, you shoot 10 or 12, and then the subject does something that you go, oh, you know, I should have thought of that, you know. Let's shoot that, you know. So sometimes the subjects are just like, I mean, I try to do as little direction as possible because I want to give my subjects an opportunity to be themselves and kind of be involved in the shoot. But look at this. This is kind of fun.
I love that.
Look at the little curly-coo. He's my star pupil. Some people think I hired him for his talent. No, it was for his good looks, actually. You know, I'm constantly photographing him. He's got this great portfolio. He can either be in front of the camera or behind the camera. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
It's hard to stay humble around Clark.
I'm an old guy now, and I'm still doing it and still loving it. I get out of bed every morning and I go, yes, let's do it again, you know. And I think that having those kinds of feelings about what you do in life are good. I think I'm doing as well as I ever have, perhaps better than I ever have, in terms of knowing how to get imagery, the technical skills, but more importantly, the anthropological skills, how to approach people, how to make imagery that's meaningful and involves the people that I'm photographing. Anybody who's lived in Alaska knows you have a wish list at the beginning of the year. It might be 100 items on that list of things you want to do. I want to photograph it in these places and these things. And at the end of the summer, you've maybe gotten 25% of them at most, which means 75% of that list has to be added on to next year's list. And then next year's list, of course, has new things on it. So what happens is your wish list, the longer you live here, the bigger it gets. You just never can accomplish it all. I've been to Point Hope 3 times in my lifetime as a photographer. And all 3 of those trips have been just absolutely fabulous. I find Point Hope the most fascinating place. Imagine it's a gravel pad jutting out into the Chukchi Sea. There's nothing, there's no trees, there's no vegetation, there's nothing but gravel. It's a gravel spit. And there's people living on that spit. They've been living there for thousands of years. And it's perhaps the longest inhabited community in the world, right here in Alaska. From an anthropological standpoint, that's amazing. And then to go out there, they talk about the whale and how important the whale is. And before they started bringing lumber up there to build houses, they fashioned everything out of the tundra and whale bones. They would dig holes in the tundra and they would store their whale meat down there so they could eat it year-round. They would take the whale bones and they'd stick them into the tundra, and they'd bring them together, and then they'd pile the sod on top of that. And they'd live in these sod houses that were extremely warm, extremely efficient, and this kind of a curved shape to them, to where that you could heat them very easily. They basically lived 100% on whale meat. It was pretty meager existence, and yet they flourished for thousands of years doing exactly that. I was out there a couple of years ago during the Whale Festival. It was an incredible 3 days of dancing, blanket toss events, eating and cutting up and sharing the whale meat with the community, and people walking off with bags of whale meat. The rookie, the guy who catches his first whale, the captain, his boat gets cut up. It's traditionally, this beautiful boat gets all cut up. The hides are given to the elders, and the elders then take those and fashion boots and gloves and different things out of that. It's a tradition that the boat gets destroyed. It's a very humbling experience to watch this captain give his boat to the community, and for the community then to cut it up and give it to the elders. And to be able to see that and to feel that emotion that goes with that, and to watch the elders receive these pieces and roll them up and walk away with them, I've got that. I've got it on the digital cards, but I've also got it here. Those kinds of experiences are hard to explain. I think that through photography, 50 years from now, they're going to be even more important.